Hi. In this video, I have a red beanie, and that's because I filmed it before I knew what I would call my channel. Alright, on to the video. Thanks for watching. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my first Manga Monday, a show where I talk about manga on Monday. The first manga we're going to be talking about is Kingdom, specifically Volume 1 of Kingdom, a historical seinen manga by Yasuhisa Hara. To quote the back cover so you have an idea as to what the story is, Shin is a war orphan in a poor village in the kingdom of Qin. He has big dreams of becoming the greatest general under the heavens, and when his best friend's life is cut short by political machinations, Shin finds himself on a quest to do what no one has ever done before: unify China. It's actually pretty monumental that it got brought to the English market because it was published first in 2005, and it's been going since then. So at this point, there's 70-something volumes, and while Viz has promised a release schedule of 1 volume a month, it will still take over 6 years to catch up completely. And I think one of the reasons that I just never read it digitally was just because it's intimidating, and 70 volumes of manga is a lot, don't get me wrong, but specifically the fact that it's a historical epic, you know, with a lot of characters and nuance, it just seemed like something that would be kind of difficult to keep track of. And now that I've read the first volume, I can say that's pretty much an okay assessment of it. It's a bit much, and it only becomes a bit much like halfway through. The first half is concerned just with the protagonist Shin and his best friend Piao, who are slaves during the Warring States period. In fact, the manga is actually an adaptation of the Shiji, which is a historical text that documents that period. Shin is just sort of a typical shonen-like protagonist. You know, he's hot-headed, he has a dream, he's good at fighting, he's very driven, but he's a bit annoying at times as well. And he certainly can, you know, he has a knack for getting himself into trouble. Piao is sort of the opposite of that, you know, a typical best friend foil-like character to set up sort of the growth and evolution of the protagonist. We've seen this 1,000 times. I'm not really spoiling anything when I say Piao gets killed in a coup when he's actually taken to learn how to be a swordsman in the royal court, which is what Piao and Shin were training for the whole time. Because it truly happens like halfway through the book, and there's 70 volumes of this, so there's definitely way more going on here than just Shin's story. What's interesting to me is that, like, pretty much the second half is an immediate introduction to all of these big named characters in historical events and political machinations that made it actually a little hard to follow. So because the story is got kind of a basic setup and all of that political stuff is just dropped on us like right away, I actually found it kind of hard to be super invested in what would happen next. The amateur art didn't help either. But in the back of the volume, it does say that Yasuhisa Hara was an assistant to Takehiko Inoue, who is the legendary mangaka who did Vagabond. So if that's not a vote of confidence, I don't know what is. There's a reason people really like Kingdom, and I think I'm just going to have to keep reading because it had promise, but ultimately I wasn't super impressed. I have read no shortage of manga in my life. If you see behind me, I have hundreds of volumes, and this doesn't even account for all the stuff that I used to have that I have since sold, and it certainly doesn't account for all the stuff that I've read purely online. But I'm not here just to like be an elitist or something, or make it some kind of contest of how much you've read or whatever. I just think that, like, at the start, it's pretty by the numbers, but that I wouldn't say really is too much of a mark against it because it's a big story, it's an ambitious story, and having a simple setup that sort of leads into stuff that's way more complicated, things are just written that way anyway. You know, I can tell Hara definitely has a vision, and in the back it actually says he fills in the gaps of the Shiji with his own artistic merit. But manga like this, especially historical, action-based, and drama-based seinen, that's the kind of manga that has like a lot of depth. So writing off Kingdom right at the first volume just because it isn't perfect, I think does it a disservice. But I would be lying if I said I really remembered any characters' names other than Shin and Piao. Like, I just read this and it's gone. Now that might be because they're all very similar Chinese names, or it might be because I was distracted.
Because I'm fucking stupid.
But overall, would I recommend it? I think I'll have to read more before I say I recommend it or not. But will I continue? Yeah, I will. I give it a passing grade. I'm going to keep the first volume and I'm going to buy the second one. That's really all I have to say. I'm looking forward to making more of these videos. have fun reading manga or not. You know, I don't really care what you do.
We do not care.
Anyway, bye-bye.